Hello everyone, welcome to Crusaders 2127 and 2127news.net. The Ebola apocalypse may have just hit America's shores. There have been possible cases after possible cases, scares after scares, but none like these two which have just hit the U.S. today. One is in Dallas, Texas, and the other is in a NIH lab. Evaluated for potential Ebola virus. This is in a Presbyterian hospital. Dallas confirmed that as a patient in strict isolation to be evaluated for potential Ebola virus. Will we hear the outcome of such? Most likely no. Here's the other one. An American doctor who was exposed to the Ebola virus in Sierra Leone checked in to the National Institute of Health Hospital Sunday for experimental testing and possible isolation and treatment, the NIH said. The doctor, who hasn't been identified, was working in Sierra Leone. If he or she has been infected, it would be the fourth U.S. doctor sickened by Ebola and treated for it. Two, Dr. Kent Brantley and Dr. Rick Sacra have been treated and released, and another unidentified doctor was being treated at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. Another American, Nancy Wrightbull, was also treated and released from Emory. One must wonder, if this doctor has Ebola, that would mean others do as well. He checked himself into the hospital, at least that's from my understanding, which most likely means he had contact with others. Possible Ebola patient arrives at U.S. NIH lab. An American doctor who was exposed to the Ebola virus in Sierra Leone checked in. I mean, that's what that means, right? To the National Institutes of Health Hospital Sunday for experimental testing and possible isolation and treatment, the NIH said. The doctor, who hasn't been identified, was working in Sierra Leone. I just read you this. Out of an abundance of caution, the patient has been admitted to the NIH Clinical Center's Special Clinical Studies Unit that is specifically designed to provide high-level isolation capabilities and is staffed by infectious diseases and critical care specialists. NIH said in a statement, the unit staff is trained in strict infection control practices, optimized to prevent spread of potentially transmissible agents such as Ebola. It said the patient poses minimal risk to anyone else. Really? A spokesperson told NBC News the patient would likely to be treated under a protocol for people exposed to dangerous biological agents, including bioterrorism weapons. All eligible persons will have an initial screening evaluation to determine the circumstances of possible infectious exposure, where, when, and how exposed, current medical condition and medical care given, and any aspects of medical history that might be relevant to the exposure, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases says in its description of the protocol. If it's infectious, the patient can be seen in the Special Clinical Studies Unit, a hospital ward specially designed to minimize the risk of spreading infection to others. People cannot spread Ebola until they begin to show the symptoms, doctors say. Right. Okay. I thought you can still spread it without the symptoms. In fact, I'm pretty positive I read that. I'm pretty positive I read that. I could be wrong, though. Upon admission, participants will provide blood and urine samples, have an electrocardiogram to measure heart activity, and have specific tests or procedures associated with the particular infectious agent. Participants who develop illnesses will be treated with the standard of care for known diseases or with experimental measures, depending on the nature of the illness. The protocol would give doctors a chance to see what infection looks like from the very beginning of symptoms. The NIH didn't give any more details, but to have been exposed, the doctor would likely have had close contact with the known Ebola patient's bodily fluids, or an accidental penetration of the skin by a contaminated knife, needle, or other sharp object. Doctors and nurses are at special risk in this pandemic of Ebola, which has sickened at least 6,500 people and killed 3,000 of them, at least. And two, supposedly only two, have risen from the freaking dead. Isn't it sounding lovely? This is your tweet, by the way. Health authorities concerned over U.S. viral outbreak causing paralysis. The U.S. health authorities have expressed concerns over the rising number of children suffering from the respiratory virus that has caused even paralysis in extreme cases. You can take out that word extreme. In the last 10 days, the virus has been detected in additional states with severe risk in Colorado, Missouri, and Chicago. Some children have developed paralysis in their limbs in Missouri. Severe cases of enterovirus D68 accompanies with severe muscle weakness have been noticed in Colorado. Dr. Chris Nyquist, Medical Director, Infection Prevention and Control at Children's Hospital, Colorado, said you have a new strain of virus circulating in a susceptible population that likes to spread things back and forth to each other. It's really a perfect storm for spreading viral illness through school settings, daycare settings, and really from the middle of the nation throughout the rest of the nation. Health experts are still wondering if the condition could lead to neurological damage in cases of severe paralysis case. Really? That's pretty darn right scary. There is a strain of this virus, I think it was enterovirus 70. I've got the article up on the website, 2127news.net, that it is actually deadly. In fact, that's what it was. They did a study in Czechoslovakia, I think it was, where they were finding this stuff in sewers. The high concentration was in sewers. And the strain 70 of the enterovirus was deadly. Now the question is, it wasn't giving them paralysis in the very beginning or partial paralysis. Now it is, so it's mutating. Right? What is this in preparation for, is what I want to know. Vaccines, mandatory vaccinations, you name it. Obama's got it in his executive orders. And if you don't take that RFID chip and mandatory vaccination, you'll be quarantined. Can't you hear it? As they say in this article, the perfect, where'd it go? Perfect storm brewing. They said it in here. Here it is. It's really a perfect storm for spreading illness through school settings, daycare settings, and really from the middle of the nation throughout the rest of the nation. Can you imagine if this was Ebola? Because I'm going to go ahead and say Ebola will most likely spread, if not worse, the same as enterovirus 68. I want to thank you all for watching. God bless. Be safe. Please check out the website 2127news.net. And if you can, please donate to us today and continue to help us do more. God bless.